bring in two members of Congress to talk about this and also what's going on with Ben Bernanke here on Capitol Hill. We have Representative Paul Kanjorski of Pennsylvania and Representative Scott Garrett of New Jersey. Welcome to Power Lunch, gentlemen. I don't know where to start here, if we should start with health care, if we should start with Ben Bernanke. We got Ben Bernanke here on the screen. Representative Kanjorski, let me start with you. It struck me that for the first time in a long time, Ben Bernanke kind of spoke outside the scope of what he normally does, which is monetary policy, and seemed to chide Congress a little bit here on fiscal policy and spending too much money. Did you hear that?
Well, of course, that's a corollary to monetary policy if we're going to get the economy working. But I think on that question of what he talked about, you can reflect back as to what his message was. And his message was that we are succeeding in coming out of the depths of the recession and that things are looking good. They're not fully recovered, but they're on a positive path now. And he anticipates that by the end of the year or early next year, we will have bottomed out and start recovering, but with a slow recovery on employment.
Congressman Garrett, how serious is the Ron Paul proposal and bill that has a lot of sponsors, by the way, when it comes to giving the GAO audit power over the Fed's monetary policy decisions?
Oh, I think it's quite serious. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation. I don't know the exact number. Last time I saw it was around 220 members plus that had signed on it, say from both the Democrats and Republicans, because they're responding to what the American public is saying. Here you have this opaque organization accountable essentially to no one that's set up that gets involved with both monetary policy and now into fiscal policy. And the American public and members of Congress just want to know, can't you open your books to us? What
about the chairman's remarks today that this constitutes political interference into the making of monetary policy? Yeah, well, I questioned him on that. You know, the Fed needs to be somewhat independent on one hand, but, you know, if you look over the history of it, there has been political pressure with regard to the Fed, whether it's on monetary policy or the regulatory side. On the regulatory side, you just saw the Fed basically succumb to pressure from Congress on regulation of credit cards and the like. And on monetary policy, as we pointed out, a report was done that said the current chairman has, pushed the Fed about a half a dozen times to keep the rates low and what have you. So there's always that pressure on the Fed in the past, and the Feds respond sometimes.
Still, Representative Kanjorski, this would raise it to unprecedented levels. Are you comfortable with the GAO being able to second-guess monetary policy decisions?
Well, no, I haven't signed on to the legislation myself. I'm waiting to see. I think we have to really make an analysis of whether or not we would be subjecting the Federal Reserve to some sort of congressional or political control, which has always been separate and been very successful without that control. So I think we have to look at it very carefully before we go to that extent. I think the importance of this bill and why it's getting so much support is the idea that many people are fostering putting the Federal Reserve in charge of systemic risk and being the uber regulator. If that were to occur, then certainly we have to have other constraints in place that may interfere with their independence in monetary policy.
Congressman Kanjorski, let me stick with you and ask about what President Obama just said about health care. He talked about extending coverage. All the bills, he said, extend coverage. But he didn't say extending coverage to all Americans. Is the White House right now redefining the goals of what it's after when it comes to health care, having read the polls?
Oh, I don't think we should be that exacting. I think the president's saying we're going to carry the ball down the line. We don't know whether we're going to bring everybody with us and score a touchdown or we're going to get down to the 1-yard line. I think that's what we should be happy for. We can't live in the circumstances that we have now, but we can improve it. But it takes a lot of leadership and governance to get that improvement. And the president says he's committed to that leadership. And I take him at his word, and I think I favor it.
Representative Garrett, we still haven't heard any commentary, though, out of the White House, out of the Democrats on the CBO coming out and saying that all these bills actually don't control costs, and they don't necessarily extend to universal coverage. They don't seem to answer the mission of what you're all trying to achieve, but nobody seems to address that.
Well, we address that, and I think you addressed that with your very first question or point with regard to Ben Bernanke when he said, when you were pointing out that he's getting into the area of fiscal restraint by Congress. Well, if we pass this health reform as is proposed by the administration, there'll be no fiscal restraint. It'll be adding $1 trillion, $2 trillion, depending on the score, to the bottom line of the taxpayers right now, and we can't sustain that. Basically,
Congressman Jaworski, I want to give you a chance to respond. Let me just tell viewers that the Bernanke hearings have adjourned, and they will. The chairman will be up on the Hill tomorrow for the Senate. Go ahead, Congressman Jaworski.
I just want to say we have to be very careful. I know my friend Scott would not try and flavor this answer by suggesting that this is the administration's proposal. This is one proposal of 5 out of committees of the Congress that we're now talking about. The president, to my knowledge, hasn't made an absolute health care proposal. He's allowing it up to the Congress, and that's what we're working through. So let's not try and saturate the president with the responsibility of whatever proposals are presently being debated.
And speaking of costs, the Fed chairman today, I think, was very explicit about the need to control future outlying deficits, particularly after the first couple years. Congressman Jaworski, will there be any changes at all as a result of the Fed chairman's testimony, or will it be business as usual?
Well, no, I think I agree with Scott. We're going to have a coming together here, and we should, of both Republicans and Democrats and the Congress to work with the president to get some control of our fiscal policy in this country and our budgetary problems in the country. If we don't, the whole system's going down. So in a way, health care doesn't matter. If we go toward self-destruction because we're incapable of operating under a balanced budget, that's our fault, and the Republic will suffer. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Representative Garrett, one of the ways that they want to pay for health care we've seen is this proposal to tax millionaires, tax people who make more than $350,000. Where does that stand? It seemed that Representative Pelosi seemed to back off yesterday on people making less than $500,000 or making $1 million. Is that going to happen? Is that dead in the water? What's the story when it comes to taxing the wealthy to pay for health care?
Well, the story is as of right now, whether you're talking about the administration or the Senate or the House, with regard to the proposals that are out there, there is no indication whatsoever for fiscal restraint, and that every proposal in the Senate and the House has been spending more and more and more, whether it's $500 billion, $1 trillion, $2 trillion. And they have not addressed the issue of how we're going to pay for it, except to say we're going to tax people more. And that tax you referred to would only generate around $600 billion when everyone's talking about twice that as much money is being needed. So we know that that's just a starting point. And although she may be backing off on it, she is not backing off on the idea of saying that we're going to be able to get this money by taxing the American public. Because your second comment is correct. There is no cost savings in any proposal, whether it's the bill in the House, the Senate proposal, or in the administration. No cost savings, only spending increases.
What do you guys, is this getting done by August 1st? Both of you. What do you think?
I would hope not, because it's too important of an issue.
Definitively no from both of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So both sides of the aisle saying it can't be done. So when does it get done by? And the longer it goes, less likely to get done?
It's a difficult question. I think we can get it done by the end of the year. I think we should work toward that. And I think we should come up with a workable problem and solution. And we should listen to some of the ideas of the other side. They should listen to some of the ideas of our side. And most of all, listen to the ideas of the American people that health care reform is necessary. Let's get it done.
Leave it there. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Two of our favorite guys, Jaworski and Garrett. We're going to take a break.
And then we're going to